Hey guys, it's Matthew here once again with a spicy new build to showcase, and today we are doing Lancing Steel into cast on crit, Reap, and Bladefall. So basically I did want to do some sort of Reap cast on crit at some point. I toyed around with the idea in a previous build like a league ago, and it seemed pretty cool, but I just left it alone for a while because I recently played Reap and played some other cast on crits. In any case, I also just then did a Cyclone cast on crit with the Mjolnir build very recently, so it wasn't going to be a Cyclone. So I wanted to look for different avenues to proc this shit and sort of make a different build here, especially since I also found an Awakened Spell Cascade gem, so I definitely wanted to make use of that with some Reap and some other shit as well. So what you're seeing here is Lancing Steel and a two-handed sword. So I've got a big two-handed sword, it's got cast on crit built into it. We Lancing Steel, and every single time we crit, we are shitting out some Bladefalls and some Reaps. And they are attached to Spell Cascade, so you're getting 4 extra ones every time. On top of that, I'm also trying to incorporate a Arcanist brand Blade Blast, which is just for single target, to make use of all of those lingering blades from the Bladefall. As you can see, it does shit on the entire screen, and it does clean things up pretty nicely, and it's not Cyclone, so it's kind of nice to just do something a bit different, because look, I'm not gonna lie, cycloning for like a week for 8 to 10 hours straight kind of hurt my mouse wrist. Yeah, so I can't just cyclone indefinitely, and as well as that, you don't really want to, you want to mix it up a bit. The other thing about the build was I wanted to also try out some bow action and do some Reap and Exsanguinate at the same time, not just Bladefall, and I did try that with a bow and doing some barrage or some rain of arrows, some storm rain, whatever the fuck, and it's also pretty cool, but this version of the build I think is just a bit cooler, and the Exsanguinate isn't quite as synergistic with the entire setup. But the cool thing about the setup is that Reap costs life instead of mana, so you don't have to worry as much about fixing mana costs for cast on crit, and especially if you go full Reap and Exsanguinate, then you really don't have any mana costs, and the way we fix life is getting some good life regen, some life gain on hit, but on top of that, this character is a Scion, and it's taking the Slayer side of the Ascendancy, so it's got good thick overleach. The other half of the Ascendancy is a Raider at the moment. I originally wanted to do Pathfinder, but Raider seems like it's got just a few too many little goodies to fix things up in the build. That is, you know, Perma Onslaught, Perma Frenzies, bit of movement speed, phasing, and also Spell Suppress. Whereas Pathfinder, just be some Flask Sustain, which is only really going to be useful if we start needing that in endgame boss fights, which I have yet to take on, so has yet to be an issue, but the DPS so far looks like it's pretty fucking thick. As you can see, my recovery is pretty thick there too, taking a few damage here, pieces of damage here or there, but that's because of the Slayer Leech. So the damage so far has been very good. I'm very pleased with what I'm seeing from this character, and overall just loved putting this thing together and testing it out. Basically just changing any sort of Herald effect on my Herald of Ash can change the entire aesthetic of the build altogether. So this one's more of a firework thing. I think it's Despair. In any case, it has been a pretty big success, I think, so far, and I do think Cyclone would be a bit smoother, but also a bit more dangerous. I've been enjoying Lancing Steel because it's a very ranged playstyle, but it is much more directional. You have to point in a certain way, and then you'll attack in a certain way, and when you first phase into like Scourge, and if you're surrounded by shit, it can get pretty sketchy. So it is a bit annoying for that. But overall, I've been very pleased with how Lancing Steel is as a proc system for cast on crits. First time I've really ever tried that, and it's just worked out wonderfully. So by all means, you can Cyclone if you'd rather, you can go a bow setup if you'd rather, but this for me is going to probably stay as full Lancing Steel, and just keep that up unless it really falters in the end game, and then I'll maybe test out Cyclone once again. So this is the Cyclone test, as you can see, and it's with a white Herald effect, and it's pretty much the only boss type thing I've done, just a little boss from Scourge, and like I said, damage so far has been pretty good, but we'll figure out how good in the coming day or two. So far though, it's been an absolute monster clearing, and we've had a very quick level 90, so let me go ahead and show you how I've built it. So here is our character, level 89, Scion, called More Failed Ventures Than Q, whoever this mystery Q is. Basically, I thought this could have been a pretty failed venture. I didn't really believe in the power of the Scion, and the setup was a bit wacky. But we kind of saved it in the end, I think, largely thanks to the scaling of an Eternity Shroud, because basically I did have to do full conversion for both Reap and Bladefall, but I didn't really know how I was going to be utilizing the damage of that full conversion just yet, since Scion has some weird shit happening. It's got like Elementalist for, resist, maybe Inquisitor, stuff like that. I didn't really know how to fully take advantage of the exposure smoothly in a build like this. Could have done an Archdemon Crown or something like that. So ultimately I decided to kind of go the Eternity Shroud route, so that we'd have a large source of damage that is going to be very potent, that is our Chaos damage, and then go more utility from our Ascendancies, and it's paid off quite nicely, I think. So the Eternity Shroud itself is 5% LE as extra Chaos per shaped item, so just get all the shaped items, and then hits ignore enemy Chaos Res. So we do have a decent contingent of Chaos damage at this point, as you can see kind of there. 2 to 3,000 Chaos, 1 to 2,000 Fire, 2 to 3,000 Cold, and a little bit of lightning damage. So the Chaos is probably going to hit the hardest, especially with Materia Flask up, and then it also will, penetrate or ignore enemy resists. Eternity Shroud, always a good item. It's not too expensive at the moment. Well, when I first picked one up, like just a bit under an Exalt, and decided to utilize it in at least a build this league, especially since we do need to get bigger, thicker, stronger characters for the new stuff. So we are built around a cast on crit Exquisite Blade. Played with these a few times in the past. It's been a while since my last one. Basically crafted this just by putting some Zeal Essences onto it. Originally, just using some Woe Essences until you can get like spell damage, and then just base yourself around a spell damage cast on crit base. But with some Zeal Essences, end up hitting some pretty good stuff, and that's what we went with. The attack speed roll makes it feel quite a bit nicer. The crit roll, not super important, since we are going to be using crit strikes in our setup anyway. And the +1 gem roll, it's cool, but not particularly necessary either. We can make good use of it. But the main thing you're looking for is cast on crit, and then, if you can get a Woe Essence on there, multi-mod around that, or until you hit something pretty nice with the cast on crit roll. So typically, throw a bunch of essences at it, or you can Alter Eagle until something good happens, and they're not too hard to make pretty decent these days. So the setup in the sword is Lancing Steel, and then it's attached to cast on crit, obviously. We then have Awakened Cascade, we then have Reap, Bladefall, currently Inspiration, and Crit Strikes. The least important of the gems at the moment is Inspiration, since the rest is pretty much like necessary to have this thing function nicely. But we have gone out of our way to make Inspiration as good as possible here, and that is to grab a level 21. Since I have +1 gems on the sword, it then goes to 22, and then you can actually utilize the mastery here for +3 to crit supports. It's a pretty fucking weak mastery, and there aren't many reasons to do it, but I think this is one of the reasons to do it. With the +3 to crit supports here, we can turn our Inspiration to a level 25 with this setup, and from level 24 to 25, it gains an extra 1% more LE damage per Inspiration charge, which means it's worth 5% more damage. So if you can get your Inspiration from level 24 to 25 by doing this method, then that does seem to be a worthwhile investment on the mastery. So that's our setup there. Eternity Shroud over here, and I'm just toying around with the idea of getting a Blade Blast in there. As an Arcanist brand, it's pretty clumsy. I very rarely use it at the moment. It's not really necessary, but maybe in the end it pushes us over to that extra large amount of DPS on single target. So it's just Arcanist brand, Blade Blast, currently increased area, Fist Aligning, Inspiration, just kind of whatever I had laying around, and might min-max a bit later. Other than that, we are using a Hatred, a Herald of Ash, a Precision. The Precision's mana cost has been cut in half with the Mastery. Still figuring out links otherwise, probably get a Wither Totem set up. And then I'm running a Blood Rage, just a Leap Slam, and a Frostblink. So not too much special stuff going on there at the moment. The Ascendancies, like I said, went for Slayer, for Cull, Leech, Area, all good stuff. And then Raider for all that Zoom and Smoothness. And then we also decided to start in the Ranger side of things. So basically, I originally thought of maybe doing this as a pure Chieftain build, pure Fire, or as a Pathfinder, sort of a jack of all trades. But instead, I went with Scion just because I felt like I was missing too much from this side of the tree, missing too much from this side of the tree. So I went Scion to get the best of both worlds. And that is primarily so I can get to like the Fire Mastery and convert through this thing. Good bit of strength and life. And then over here, the Cold Mastery to convert, and some good spell suppress, and also using Secret to Suffering at the moment, which turns all of my sort of ailments into different ones. And the main one we're looking for is Brittle, so our Cold will instead make things take a bunch more extra crit strike base. And it basically caps your crit very comfortably as long as you start the crits at some point. So feels pretty important, and as well as that, Scorched helps our fire damage, and then Sapped, gets things to hit for a bit less hard, but it doesn't go off too much because we don't have that much lightning damage. A lot of our lightning might also come from just like Elemental Mastery here, which has 10% of Fizz as extra random element. Sometimes it'll be lightning, and there you go. Grabbed a Watcher's Eye, just precision crit multi. Using this at the moment, 40 Fizz damage with skills cost life. Might use the Lingering Blades one instead if it seems like Blade Blast is going to be relevant in the build. And other than that, Mastery is nothing too special. Bit of life and the spell suppress crit thing, and the tree is currently as such. That's what we're dealing with. The gear, besides the two main pieces, picked up a shaped hat off the market, which was pretty damn nice. Just everything I needed in a hat. I do need some int on the build. Could use even more int, so I might still need to fix that up on a pair of gloves or something. Yeah, life, resists, int, suppress. Amulet that just had some penetration, but the main thing is Fizz's extra lightning. We then have a bit of extra multi, and it's got the penetration, but ideally we'd have one where we can craft damage while leeching, because that is pretty powerful. And I've already anointed Hematophagy, which is damage while leeching and better recovery and stuff. Pretty powerful node since we're always leeching. Got self-rolled ring, just put some catalysts on there and use some pristine fossils. Got some resist and stuff. A assassin mark ring, self-rolled semi, something like that. Just harvest crafting, that sort of things. Just need resists. Over here, some cooldown recovery boots. Bought these for 1 exalt. Just looking for some cooldown recovery to proc a bit more. And movement speed, not too important, but needed a couple of resists as well. And then I enchanted it with Leech, which helps us sustain a bit throughout maps, but do have a Series Flask as well for that. Picked up a belt off the market with reduced flask charges and cooldown recovery. So it's going to be tough to make that yourself. I don't really have any suggestions for how you do that, because it's just luck of the draw to get both cooldown recovery and reduced flask charges. Neither are particularly important, and you can craft your own recovery on there, but it does need to be a shaped belt if you're doing the whole Eternity Shroud thing. And then I grabbed some gloves and just put some Zeal Essences into them. I was mainly looking for accuracy and a bit of life, but might need to go back to the drawing board since I do need int. We'll have to wait and see. Shaped fingerless silk gloves, they are a little bit expensive though, like 80C for a base or something. Could instead start with any other base. All we're getting here is 16 spell damage. And then I put on the Convert to Cold just to get a bit more effect of Brittle happening, since it's pretty important that we get large amounts of crits on the enemies. And then just using a mana flask to help cover the Bladefall at the moment, since that does cost a bit of mana on the procs. So that's an enduring mana flask, got a taste of hate, and they're all just used when adjacent, so I can just press one button and they all activate. But you could do some more powerful stuff if you want that gains no charges during it, etc. Up to you on that one. And that's currently the build. And also we'll show you the cast on crit bow I was going for. So I just managed to alt regal this thing into cast on crit and chain, I think, and then I regaled the fire damage on spells, and I was like, wow, cool. And then I tried that out with Exsanguinate, and it's cool, and it definitely clears fast with the Exsanguinate barrage, and then chuck a Reap and Awaken thing in there, and it clears pretty nice, but it does have worse single target, and it does feel a bit sketchy at times. Either way, if you want it, you can definitely go a more bow-centric setup in this, and it's a bit of a different play style, and it's entirely up to you if you want to do that. But the main thing that we're looking at is basically Reap, Reap, Cascade. Pretty cool interaction, definitely get around it with cast on crits if you want. Various different ascendancies, various different ways of building are definitely going to work. Full cold conversions, you can go full fizzes, you can do around his prototype and just stack some flat if you really want. Energy blade action, I don't know. It's pretty cool stuff though, the whole Reap thing. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video and the little build, and I hope to have some good news for you on endgame in the next one. Thank you very much for watching, and see you next time.